Coming in last, number 32 is going to be Long Ring Longland. Long Ring Longland is a pretty terrible arc all around, with probably the worst villain in One Piece history with Foxy, even though he is pretty funny. The only redeeming factor is at the end with Aokiji versus Luffy and the admirals getting formally introduced. Number 31 is Orangetown. I remember this arc being a lot better than it was, but honestly upon rewatch, it was really slow, even though it's only 4 episodes. But once again, at least Buggy is funny. Number 30 is Fishman Island. For Fishman Island to be as long and slow as it was, and just for it to be hyped up as much as it was before that, is probably the most disappointed I've ever been in One Piece. Horrible villain and horrendous pacing. We just saw the Straw Hats just destroy everyone post-time skip, because they got so much stronger. I understand the point of the arc was probably to display how much stronger they've gotten, but that doesn't mean it's good or was done in a good way at all. Number 29 is Amazon Lily. I feel like I might be a little lower on this arc than most, but it was just really slow. I understand it has big implications, but it was just really a slow transition arc. Number 28 is Whiskey Peak. Whiskey Peak was never meant to be a good arc. I mean, it's just kind of a mid-transition arc, but the reveal of Vivi was cool, and the Mr. 5 fight was cool. Number 27 is going to be Punk Hazard. Not a horrible arc by any means, but when it's followed by Fishman Island, it's going to make it seem good either way. And the villain is just a slight step up from Fishman Island. I mean, it's the same story, though. Luffy's just way stronger than the villain, and it wasn't a challenge for him at all to defeat him. But Law's introduction and Smoker being in this arc was really fun. Those are some high points. Number 26 is Syrup Village. Usopp's introduction is great, and the villain is pretty good too, but really one of the biggest low points of this arc is just how slow it is. Number 25 is going to be Skypiea. Skypiea was so slow that it took me out of One Piece for 8 months. I had an 8-month break in between watching. The beginning and end of Skypiea were actually pretty good, but genuinely the middle might be the worst stretch in all of One Piece, and the priest fights are probably the worst fights in One Piece. Number 24 is Little Garden. We're now getting to the arcs that are all around good, but just have small things holding them back. The introduction of the Giants and Usopp's development in this arc was really good. And Mr. 3 was an okay villain, but obviously it was meant to build up to Alabasta. Number 23 is going to be Return to Sabaody. Now I know I said these following arcs are just good, but with small things holding them back, but I lied. It's insane how bad this arc can be when the original Sabaody Archipelago arc that was only like 100 episodes prior was really, really impressive. And there's a lot holding this arc back. I mean, it's slow, the villains are bad, or rather the lack thereof of villains, I should say, was bad. But the one thing that's keeping this arc this high is the Straw Hats all reuniting again after the time skip. That one moment is just so good that it brings this arc up a lot. Number 22 is Reverse Mountain. I'm pretty sure this is the shortest arc in the series with just 2 episodes, but honestly, it's the perfect length for this. Laboon's story was so emotional, and the connection to Brook later was done really well. Number 21 is the first arc in One Piece, Romance Dawn. Premiere without Vita and Kobe was done really well, and the 2 episodes we had at Shellstown with Zoro and the first real villain Morgan was really good. And wrapping it up with Luffy's backstory with Shanks and how he got to have his devil fruit was amazing. Number 20 is Zoe. Not a whole lot happens in this arc because it was mainly a transition arc, but the flashback with Jack coming and nearly killing everyone, and then we find out that Raizo was actually there the whole time and they nearly died just to protect him was actually insane. And the mystery around Sanji at that point was pretty cool too. Number 19 is Logtown. Luffy on the execution platform, the Luffy versus Smoker fight, Dragon's introduction. So many peak moments, but just not any huge story beats in this arc. Number 18 is Jaya. I feel like Jaya is really underrated. The whole stuff with Bellamy was amazing, and then meeting Blackbeard and listening to his speech about dreams was amazing as well. And also at the end, when we see Doflamingo stringing up Bellamy for losing, it was really interesting because we didn't really know that much about Doflamingo at that point. And at the time, he was hyped up for so long, and it really added to the fact of him being, in my opinion, the best villain the series has to offer. The only thing really bringing it down is in the beginning with Nolan's relative and all that. It just wasn't that interesting. Number 17 is Drum Island. Chopper's backstory was incredible, and everything having to do with Chopper and Kureha was amazing as well. Their characters are so well done. Really just everything not having to do with Wapol was amazing. He's a very weak villain. And this is one of the best moments in One Piece in my opinion. Number 16 is Post-War. Post-War was such an emotional arc after the events of Marineford, and Jinbei being the only one that could be with Luffy in that time was so sad. And then wrapping it up with 3D2Y was just amazing. Number 15 is Post-Enies Lobby. Post-Enies Lobby is so underrated as well. We have Garp, we have learning the relationship between Luffy, Dragon, and Garp. We have the introduction of the 4 Emperors. We have Robin and Aokiji's last conversation. It was just so peak. Number 14 is Thriller Bark. A lot of Thriller Bark was just slow and mid, but all the stuff with Brook was incredible. And then the end of this arc with Kuma and Nothing Happened being really one of the best moments in the entire series brings this arc up a lot. But the middle of the arc was just really slow with a really lackluster villain, although he did get a little more depth later in Wano. Number 13 is Impel Down. Impel Down is an all-around good arc with a lot of colorful characters and fan favorites returning. But at the end of the day, it's a transition arc, kind of like Zoe. A lot of it is Luffy just kind of running around looking for Ace. Number 12 is the Reverie arc. This one may be a little controversial be this high because it's not a traditional arc. But there's really just no low points in this arc, and it has a ton of lore drops. Like the giant straw hat, the introduction of Emu, the warlords being abolished, just an all-around enjoyable arc. Number 11 is the Bratier arc. Bratier is a great arc between the introduction of Sanji and his backstory, the Bratier being a great location itself, especially for early One Piece. And then Zoro's fight with Mihawk and his proclamation after was so incredible. And even to the small stuff, like the stuff with Sanji and Gin, which was never referenced again, but it was still really good at the time. And also, Luffy's fight with Don Krieg was really well done as well. Number 10 is going to be Arlong Park. Arlong Park is the first arc in the story that really shows you how good One Piece can be. And it's the first arc that makes a lot of people fall in love with the story. Nami looking back at Luffy and pleading for him to help her was just so sad, and is the first moment that's not in a backstory that could have you crying. Number 9 is Alabasta. Alabasta is the first big arc in One Piece and it has some incredible moments. The biggest complaint though, which of course is just that it's slow at some points. But other than that, it's a great arc with probably the most underrated storyline in the series, with the characters of Koza, Vivi, and the rebellion that Koza was putting up against Alabasta. I always see people talk about Crocodile and how he's such a good villain, which I agree he is, but nobody ever talks about Koza and Vivi's backstory and how the rebellion was affecting everything. But Crocodile and Luffy's first fight was probably the best fight in the series up to that point, and Crocodile's final blow to Luffy was probably a top 3 moment in the series up to that point. Number 8 is the Sabaody Archipelago. Sabaody is an incredible location and an incredible arc. So much is happening in this arc and it all works. The Supernovas were some of Oda's best additions to the story, with some of them being some of the best characters in the story like Bonnie and Law. I can go on and on about this arc, from meeting Rayleigh to meeting Kizaru to the introduction of slavery. And this arc just has some of the best moments in the entire series, like Luffy punching a celestial dragon and the complete and utter annihilation of the Straw Hats by the hands of Kuma, and being one of the worst days of Luffy's life. That moment was one of only 2 moments in the whole series that brought me to tears. We rarely see Luffy talk negatively about himself in his dreams, but when he does, it's always an incredibly emotional experience, and it worked amazingly here. Number 7 is Dressrosa. Dressrosa has a lot of slow moments. It's one of the most egregious arcs when it comes to that, but the peaks are so high that I can't put it any lower than this. Dressrosa has, in my opinion, the best villain in the entire series with Doflamingo. Learning the backstory of Law and his ties with Doflamingo was so sad and emotional. And on top of that, we have new characters like Rebecca and Kuros, who are also amazing. Dressrosa itself is an incredible location, one of the best in the series. Number 6 is Whole Cake Island. I feel like most people would have Whole Cake a little lower than this, but I really liked it. But like Dressrosa, it has a lot of slow points, but also like Dressrosa, the peaks are insanely high. Highlight of this arc is the dynamics between Luffy and Sanji, and just Sanji's character arc as a whole. This arc was amazing, and then seeing the effects of it in Wano was even better. And the stuff with Beji, while not amazing, I think was pretty underrated. And then Sanji's family was a really cool addition to the world. And Big Mom as a villain, while much more powerful than Dofi, is just not nearly as interesting as him. Number 5 is going to be Water 7. Water 7 is an amazing arc with one of the best moments in the series with Usopp's departure from the crew. The falling out between Luffy and Usopp almost brought me to tears. And the mystery with Robin, Sanji's solo mission to find her, and Frankie's backstory was just complete cinema. Number 4 is Egghead. Meeting Vegapunk was great after all this time of hearing his name. And also seeing Law and Kid get destroyed by Blackbeard and Shanks were really cool moments. And also something I never expected to get was some depth to Kizaru. I thought he would always just be, the lazy, really strong admiral, but no, the depth that was added was really well done as well. We also get Kuma's backstory, which is just so sad, probably one of the saddest in the whole series. The lore drops in this arc were also insane, with the 5 elders showing up and the giant pirates showing up, just complete cinema. Number 3 is Wano. Wano being the longest arc in One Piece does make it suffer a little bit because it is kind of slow in the beginning and a little in the middle, but by the end it's absolute peak. I absolutely loved Zoro's arc in Wano, but I wish he could have gotten a little more. And Oden's backstory was probably the best since Sanji's second backstory. And of course the fight with Kaido was incredible, and Gear 5 being one of the best transformations in anime. Number 2 is Enies Lobby. Enies Lobby is the first arc in One Piece that it really hit me that I might be watching the best story ever told. The emotional beats of Robin's backstory and feeling those repercussions all the way to the present day arc was just amazing. And the I Want to Live moment is definitely a top 3 moment in the series and potentially a top 10 moment in anime. And the fights between all the crew members was just amazing, between seeing Monster Point for the first time, Gear 2 and 3 for the first time, Diable Jambe for the first time, we see Nine Sword Style for the first time. I could just go on and on about how good this arc was. Even something like Frankie burning the blueprints was peak. Just a masterpiece of an arc. And the arc that has been my favorite arc since the second I saw it, the best arc in One Piece, is Marineford. Marineford was designed to be one of the best arcs in the series. I mean, it was like it almost couldn't fail with how much that was going on. I mean, just look at these ratings. Marineford has nearly all of the important characters that have been introduced up to this point in the story, while also introducing new characters that are interesting additions to the story as well. It was literally just like Endgame for One Piece, but if Endgame was 10 times better. Marineford has amazing fights, great character moments, and incredible emotional beats. And then crazy unexpected moments like Shanks showing up, Blackbeard showing up and killing Whitebeard, him absorbing Whitebeard's fruit and somehow having 2 Devil Fruit abilities. And then of course one of the saddest moments in the whole series, the second and last time I've ever cried in this series. All around just a 10 out of 10 arc, one of the best in fiction.